Hello, beautiful people. It is an amazing, beautiful day outside here in Great Falls, Montana. So today, I am shooting my videos outside for you guys. I hope that you don't mind. Hopefully, you're not hearing a lot of noise, but I'm expecting you're hearing a little. But I hope that you enjoyed this video. We've been working for the past couple episodes on this dog, drawn in Symmetry and Autodesk Sketchbook, which you can see a couple episodes back, then brought it into Procreate and colored it and flattened it. And then I showed you some of my advanced techniques that I was going to save for an advanced video, but I'm showing them to you now. We've done some shading to this guy, and now we're moving on to doing some highlights. And this is going to be highlights and rim lights. Now, we've already applied a bit of an atmospheric highlight to him, as you can already see. He's got a little bit of light on the top of his face, and then towards the mouth and chest it's a lot darker. But now we're going to go in with something a bit harder. And there's a couple different ways we can go about doing this, but I'm just going to keep it simple and show you some of my very basic techniques, including working with rim light, which I think really makes it pop. We may even try something a little different that I might do just for the fun of it, just to experiment, because you guys know me, I do try to discover new things even as I'm teaching you. So we're going to see what happens today with maybe trying to mess around with some of this stuff just a little bit more. But today we're going to continue on with getting this guy shaded with some highlights, or should I say highlighted with some highlights, to make him pop and really come on out here. Okay? Drawn on my iPad Pro. And right now we are in Procreate, which is an amazing program. All started in Autodesk Sketchbook to do it in Symmetry. Okay, so now we're going to go ahead and get in here and start working with getting a little bit more detail in here. I'm going to grab. Well, I already made a little mistake, so let me jump out of here real quick. Look at my previous video where I talked about why it's a good idea to jump out of the program and back into it every now and then, so it saves content. You can see why that is a little later when you go and watch some of those previous episodes if you haven't watched them yet. I'm going to go ahead and take my full group of parts here. I'm going to combine them together, and I know I'm being very vague about this, but that's because I've already talked about some of this in the previous videos, so go back and check those out. It'll help you out a lot, okay? We're going to come here. I'm just going to select that, and then I'm just going to leave it like that. I don't need to do anything to that layer, and I'll just save it if I need to do that again. Okay, so now we're going to work on the highlight areas and things like that. A couple different ways we can do this. I'm going to do it first with an airbrush and see about how I feel about it. I'm going to select my highlight yellow that I like to use, and then I'm going to make my brush a good size. I just want to make sure that when I do shade, it's not so big it's going to engross the painting. And then I also have my opacity dropped as well, so it's not going to do it harsh, it's going to do it subtly, okay? And I'm choosing my areas of highlight, and I am applying a very heavy dose of it here. And the reason why I'm applying a very heavy dose of it is I want to see what it looks like blown out, and then all I have to do is drop the opacity on it, and I'm good to go. Right here, even though the shadow's there as well, I'm going to leave that just like that for now anyway. Coming up to the tips of the ears, I think it needs to be on the tips. And right here. Okay. Definitely want it on the nose, on the muzzle specifically. I am going to make my brush a bit smaller now and try and throw a little bit here on the tips of the mouths, coming into the cheeks. Okay. And across the shoulders, across the back of the shoulder. And there we go. Same over here. Shoulder, back of the shoulder. Okay. And maybe even bring it down across the pecs just a little and layer it up across the pecs a little. So I know that kind of completely changes the look of the dog, but not for long, because what I'm going to end up doing here is just take this layer, and actually if you could see in the small layer panel, it looks really, really cool. Almost looks like Batman. I'm going to take this and I'm just going to change it to add, and it's going to vibrant see everything out. It's going to just blow it out, and then once I drop the opacity on it, I'm going to kind of play with it and see where I find that it has a good light structure, and once I like it, I can just leave it like that, and I think it looks pretty cool. Just gives a really, really neat effect to the piece. Just really, really helps it pop. And then if I need to, I can adjust some of my other layers to compensate for the strength of that. So maybe we'll go back to my heavier shadows and either darken them up or lighten them up, or maybe I need to go in with a secondary darker shadow, which I might do, just to really make this pop even a little bit more. I think that looks pretty epic, quite honestly. It's really starting to have some appeal to it, really starting to pull it off the page and really give it some expanse. But I think something else that's going to help is my little highlight thing that I do, or my rim light. So all I do with that, it's very, very simple, is I make a new layer and I use a very hard brush, hard inking brush, and I simply choose an area and I focus on getting highlights drawn in. Okay, and I choose just a couple areas really just to blow it out. And they do need to be, you need to really think about where they are in lines of facing the light. Okay, kind of like that. And maybe along the brow here. And I really try to focus on where my light source is coming from, obviously. So maybe if it's really in a good place, I might put it along here. I might bring down a line down the center of the nose. And this might be a bit too vibrant, which I'm expecting it will. So I may either remove this or I may shade it or feather it. We'll see. Okay. Any place that just would pop towards the light. Especially reflective areas, like the top of the nose is going to be highly reflective in comparison to the skin, which is going to be far less. I am exploring a little bit more of this in this video, where I'm doing a little bit more discovery myself and where I'm choosing to put it, because usually I just keep it on one side of the face, or especially if I'm drawing in 3/4. And I rarely do it from the sun coming straight down, but because I'm doing that, I am exploring a little bit more with its positioning on this body. You can see it's popping. It's really blowing off the page here, and it looks really, really cool. Even like that, and that's before I've changed it to an add layer, which I'm going to go ahead and do now. And it's just going to, the add layer is just going to make it go crazy. You can see it's just blown it out to white, and then as I drop it back, it's going to give some yellow back to it. And if I bring it down, it's going to let some of the shadow lines through and stuff. So it's really giving it some structure. But now let's see if maybe we need to blend some stuff out a little bit, like this nose, like I was saying here. So I got my blending brush, and I'll keep it pretty small, and I'm just going to carefully blend out down the sides of the nose a little. Okay, so basically when I do blending, I pull the color in the direction I need, and then I blend top to bottom to really make it as much of a smooth gradient as possible. So pull, grabbing and pulling, and then blend from top to bottom. And hopefully if I do that just right, it'll get this really nice clean gradient. Do it a little bit across the nose here. So you can see how it's like dagger strokes, and then I'm going to go top to bottom, and those dagger strokes will blend into themselves, and it should smooth out kind of nice. Okay? Gives it a really, really cool effect. Coming down here over the face, I'm going to pull the color down into the spur of the, I'm calling it the spur, there's no real name for whatever the cranium here. And then as I'm pulling it down, then I'll pull it out and blend left to right to shade it into a nice smooth shadow. Pushing kind of hard with my pencil too, to really try and pull those colors in. Okay. All right. That looks kind of cool. It looks a little messed up. I might go back and adjust that. Maybe what I can do is draw in a little bit more, following along the shape of this shadow here. Exaggerating that form a little. Maybe take it around and polish it into the other side. And then if I'm feeling like it's just not getting flow, then maybe I'll airbrush it a little. Not airbrush it, but blend into itself a little. See if that kind of helps. And your goal is to kind of think about where you want to pull from, because you can either pull from the darks into the light by starting your brush on the outside and pulling into and then blending, or pulling from the light into the dark and then blending. Okay. And I do an X form, so I pull and then I shade, pull and then gradient. Does that make sense? That's looking kind of beast. That looks great. And I like how hard some of the lines are over his eyes and things like that, so I'm probably going to leave those alone. I'm sure I could do so much more, but it just looks really nice and deep. It's beginning to get a lot of structure and showing a lot of depth. I am going to do two more things. I'm going to try two things. I'm going to make a new layer. I'm going to make it an add layer. I'm going to drop the opacity just a little. And I just want to kind of show a little bit of wetness on his nose. So maybe I'll do a couple lines and a couple individual dots, just to kind of build up maybe just a little bit of structure on the nose. Some, what's the word I'm looking for? Texture on the nose. And then I'll just take that layer and drop its opacity just a little bit, so it hopefully kind of shows just a little bit of wetness. The harder your highlights are, the more shiny or wet something will look. Okay. Alright, so we're getting somewhere. I think I want to make his teeth kind of glow as well in that same way, even though they're in a dark area of the mouth. At the same time, they're going to be a bit more reflective because their teeth, they're going to be white and wet and have some structure. So I'm going to go find my teeth layer, which I have here. I'm going to select that layer so that it makes its own layer, but I have the teeth specifically marked out. And then I'm going to make that an add layer, drop its opacity way down. I'm going to do yellow for this. We'll see if I change that. And then I'm just going to do some serious highlight across each tooth here. All right, there, that totally looks cool already. And then what I'll probably do is see what happens if maybe just at the bottom here, the base of each tooth, maybe I'll shade this out, pulling it up towards the tooth. Try and gradient the tooth, pulling the color from the highlight down into the base of the tooth, and then shading it. We'll see how that looks. And then I'll probably, because I don't want the teeth to remain this orange, I'm probably also going to then go over it with a airbrush of white and see if I can just whiten them up a little bit. I'm getting a little sloppy. Okay, let's release that and see how that looks. Yeah, it's not great. It's not great. So what I'll do is select my first layer again. And I think I'm just going to affect that layer itself. Just grab the airbrush with pure white, make it nice and big with a dropped opacity, and just go over these teeth a couple times. It should lighten them up a little bit. Kind of give them a little bit of a different effect, and we'll see how much I like that. Okay, it definitely lightened them up a little bit, maybe a bit too much, so maybe I'll take a couple steps back with my undo and just choose at a certain point which one I like. That looks pretty good. All right, I feel like we're getting somewhere. He looks really, really great. Still doesn't have a tongue. I don't know what I'm going to do about that, if I'm going to worry about that or not. And as you can see also, there's this whole humongous area in the background here. I would simply cut this layer down and make this a smaller thing, but sadly Procreate does not have a crop to crop the canvas down. So that's probably something I would do in post in another program like Graphic or something like that. But let's do... I feel like we've learned a lot in this episode, which is really, really great. Let's go ahead and have some fun shade up the eyes here real quick, and then we'll finish off this episode. Excuse me, I got the hiccups. Let's see. I'm going to select just the eyes. And I would do this on the same layer, but I'm just going to have some fun, do it on its own layer since I've been enjoying using this selection tool thing. We're going to go ahead and maybe start with some orange red here. That looks pretty cool. And soft airbrush. I'm going to raise up the opacity just a little bit on this because I do want it to be kind of bold. Make sure I don't have anything turned on that's going to mess this up. It's above the right layer. It's selected. I didn't see anything. There it is. Okay. So I'm going to carefully go around the apex of the eye. And just start applying in this tone. I kind of want the pupil to become the highlighted point of the yellow, if that makes sense. Dad's back. So get right in here. And in here. And start shading. I want to give it just a little bit of shadow from the upper lid. So I'm going to do that by hardening up that a little bit. And maybe we'll go a bit more into the red and darken it. Okay. Here too. Okay. Really focusing on... Yep, mailman's here. That's cool. My big special package has finally showed up. Okay, so we're going to finish this up really quickly with just a couple highlight dots or highlight shapes. Maybe if you want to have him looking through a window or something, you put like window panes like the window behind me or something like that in his eyes and just drop their opacity in white. It's going to look awesome. Me personally, I like highlight dots, so I'm just going to do some highlight dots. So maybe 1, 2, or 3 just in some key areas here. If you wanted to do windows, maybe you do like this kind of a deal, where you draw them in just like this. Kind of get them just right, you know. Don't go halfway like I did, but something like that. We'll draw in 1, 2, 3, 4, kind of like that, and then simply come here to the layer and drop their opacity. Something else I like to do sometimes is I will get my eye color and select it, so I'm still within that mode, and I'll make a new layer like so, and with the white not as an opacity, I'm going to hard apply a white in here like this, and then I'll drop the opacity on that, and that can sometimes give a cool effect as well. You might want to try a couple different options in your attributes, your layer attributes, and see if that affects it in any kind of way you like. That kind of makes it pop a little bit more or not. So, we got packages, don't we? Oh, I bet. I'll come get them in the back in a few moments. I'll finish up this video real quick first. So after that, now we're going to go ahead and just finish up on the cheeks here, and I'll be all done. So let me go ahead and shadow this up, and we'll get this nearly done. Okay. Okay. Make sure that you get your right color that you had for it. And get it shaded up. Just feel like it needs just a little bit more along the muzzle here. Yeah, that helped it out a lot. So there you go. That's the next step that we've got for putting in highlights. I think that looks really, really beast. He looks like one angry dog. And that was seriously a lot of fun. So I hope that you've enjoyed the highlights for this video. More to come. I don't know what else we're going to do to this just yet because we're kind of reaching the end of this. Maybe we'll look at some more defining structures and things like that that makes it pop. But we're coming near the end of our video, guys, and really hope that you've enjoyed the series so far of what I used to draw with. This really does show quite a little bit more. Apparently Joshua Kidder just really likes to video chat a lot. But definitely I'm hoping that this shows you guys everything you need to know so you can get somewhere with your artwork and really push it to its max. So God bless you guys. You are amazing and beautiful people. Keep being brave. Hop on over to my Patreon if you don't mind. If you haven't considered donating yet, get on over there, take a look at everything I got over there, and consider being a very humongous support of mine. And thank you so much for subscribing to the channel, for liking the videos, for leaving comments, for giving advice, for teaching me the things I don't know so that I can teach everyone else in a video way. You guys are amazing. I will see you next time. Bye.